Today I want to talk about all of the books that I've added to my library collection since the beginning of this year. I haven't done a book haul in a very long time, and I thought I'd go ahead and talk to you about the books that I'm excited to read over the next couple of months and just to have as part of my collection. These are the books that I've acquired since January of this year. I want to start off talking about two books that were actually sent to me and gifted to me by a friend. You know who you are, thank you so much. The first one of those is Cleopatra and Frankenstein by Coco Mellors. I don't remember why I ended up putting this on my wish list. I remember really enjoying the cover, and Frankenstein is one of my favorite books. It's my favorite book by Mary Shelley. So anytime there's a book with the name Frankenstein on the cover, I just know that I want to have it and read it eventually. I also just really love the color palette on this book. I think it's stunning. The next book that was gifted to me by my friend is The Night Watchman by Louise Erdrich. I am slowly but surely accumulating the works by Louise Erdrich. I actually have two more over here. I have Antelope Bowman and Love Medicine. I haven't read either of them, but I do think of my collection as a library and as a way for me to read whatever I want whenever I want. So it's just really focused on building it out and having a diverse set of books that I can pull from whenever I feel like it, since I am a mood reader. From here on out, all of the books mentioned I purchased myself, and they were either pre-orders or books that I just found at a local used store or at a thrift store. First one of those is Catalina by Karla, Cornejo, Villavicencio. She is the author of The Undocumented Americans, which is a nonfiction book that I really loved and enjoyed. If you haven't checked it out, highly recommend. This is her debut campus fiction novel, and I can't wait to see what she does. She was actually here in Portland, Oregon at Powell's doing her book tour, so I got to meet her. Whenever possible, I try to go to the events that authors have locally here. She's so funny and so smart. After hearing her speak, this has shot up on my TBR, so I'm hoping to read it before the end of the year. The next book is Jump Knots by Hao JingFang. I believe this is translated by Ken Liu. I feel like he translated it. Let's see. Yep, translated by Ken Liu. I had a feeling. I do own one other book by Hao JingFang. I notoriously have not read it, but it is part of my collection. I have a separate bookshelf where I keep all of my translated works, and this year I really wanted to read more science fiction and really find types of sci-fi that I really enjoy. So I was hoping to also read more translated science fiction books. This one fit the bill, so I'm hoping to potentially read it by the end of the year. So this one is set in a future where Earth is divided into two factions. But when we realize that there's like a highly intelligent alien race coming to our solar system, those factions are fighting to be the first one to get in contact with said alien race. So the next book that I ended up buying or pre-ordering is Time of the Flies by Claudia Piñero. This is translated by Frances Riddle. Claudia Piñero is the author of Elena Knows, which is one of my favorite books of all time. I love that book. She does have another book that she published between that one and this one, but I was just so nervous to jump into it. In the back of my mind, I was like, what if I don't love it as much as Elena Knows? And I just have to dive in. I just have to trust her. And it's okay to not like every book by an author that you really like, right? So I ended up picking up her newest novel, which is Time of the Flies. The premise of this one reminds me a little bit of The Bandit Queens, which I also have not read but do own. It's right here. This one right here. Because there's this woman who is released from prison and she starts an extermination company with her best friend. It's a company focused on pest control but also private investigations for women and by women. One day they receive a request from one specific clientele for a very specific type of service. So it sounds super fun and interesting. This is another one that I really hope to read by the end of the year. We'll see if we're able to do that. The next book that I pre-ordered is The Goddess of the River by Vaishnavi Patel. This was one that I meant to read when it came out. However, my book got lost in the mail and it ended up arriving like 8 weeks later. And by that time, I was so inundated with my NetGalley reads, the arcs that I have to read, that I wasn't able to put time aside to read it. I love this cover. I haven't read anything by this author. I know people really love Kaikei, which is this author's previous novel. I don't know when I'll end up diving in, but I'm sure it's going to be a great story. By the way, all of the books that I've mentioned so far, I haven't read any of them. I think this might be the only one that I've read, but this is The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I received an advanced reader copy to read this particular novel and ended up loving it. It's without a doubt a top 10 book for me this year, and so of course when it came out, I had to go and pick it up because I also do have a Silvia Moreno Garcia collection that is slowly growing. This is definitely my favorite book by her, or Velvet Was the Night. It's between those two, it changes. But yes, I really loved The Seventh Veil of Salome. If you haven't picked it up, highly recommend. I really enjoyed this one. This next book I picked up because of TikTok. I actually follow the author Celia Martinez on TikTok, where she reads her poetry, and I just always found it to be super relatable, super emotional, very intense, and I just really love her poetry and I wanted to support her. So I ended up purchasing her first volume of Diary of a Romantica. I'm pretty sure this is self-published. And yeah, every once in a while I open up to a random page and read a couple here and there. Yeah, so I just really wanted to have this. She does have a volume 2 out now, which I will pick up eventually, but here's this one. I just really enjoy her poetry, and you should check her out on TikTok if you haven't, because she reads a lot of these on there and they're amazing. The next 2 books that I ended up picking up are romance novels. The first one is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I don't think she really needs an introduction. People love Emily Henry's work. She's a contemporary romance author. I've read Happy Place by her, and although it wasn't an immediate favorite, it was one that I actually did quite enjoy reading through just because I liked the friendships and the focus on friendships in that story. And personally, I haven't read a lot of romances where friendships are truly valued and focused on. I also don't read tons of romance, so that's probably why. But yeah, I wanted to check out her newest novel, and I did get it on sale, so I said, why not? The next book that I have is A Love Song for Ricky Wilde by Tia Williams. This was actually a pre-order. This is another one that I was really hoping to get to when it was first released, and then life got in the way. So I'm really hoping to finish it, if not later this year, like possibly during the winter. I don't know. I like to read romances in the winter for some reason. Oh, I left my bookmark in here. See, I was planning on starting it, but then never did. So my bookmark's already in here. Okay, we're moving on to the other pile now. This next book I bought when I went to see P.Dèjlí Clark. He's currently on tour for the book The Dead Cat Tell Assassins. Actually, I've also read that one. It was also an ARC. I also really enjoyed it, so I ended up purchasing that book. And at Powell's, whenever you go to an author event, you automatically get 15% off of your entire purchase. So I ended up sneaking a couple of books in there. Let me actually get that purchase together. That way I talk about them at the same time. Okay, so here's the book, P.Dèjlí Clark, The Dead Cat Tell Assassins. He actually stamped it with this little stamp. And then if you've read the book, there's the calling card that comes up during the book. And then I did get it signed. I'm really glad that I went to the author event. He's an extremely funny person, super relatable. So I ended up getting The Dead Cat Tell Assassins, and if you haven't heard about this, this is his newest release. The world building feels really expansive, even though it's a relatively short novel. It's slightly bigger than a novella. There's undead assassins and gods, and it's just a really intriguing plotline. I had so much fun reading this, so I'm glad that I have a copy. And since I had 15% off of that entire purchase, I ended up getting 3 more books. The first one of those is The Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I'm pretty sure that the 3rd book in this series came out this year, and it is the final book, so it is a trilogy. And I personally don't know much about it except that it's a young adult fantasy series and that it's really good. I've heard just really good things about it. I love the cover. I want to read more young adult fantasies, so I picked it up. I also ended up getting Who Fears Death by Nnedi Okorafor. I do have a growing collection of Nnedi Okorafor books. I have the Binti series, which I've read in its entirety, and Remote Control, and this is the newest book to that Nnedi Okorafor collection. And I picked this one up because I had an art for She Who Knows, which is prequel to this book. So we follow the mother of the main character in Who Fears Death, and that's actually going to be a series of novellas. So I'm really excited I picked it up. I will eventually buy She Who Knows, but I decided to opt out and buy this one for now, read it, and then continue on with that series as the series goes by. So yeah, really excited to have this. Back to this one. So I ended up getting Mina's Matchbox by Yoko Ogawa. This is the author of The Memory Police, which I read several years ago now. It was like 4 or 5 years ago. But yeah, I just remember having a really fond memory of it. So I wanted to see what her newest novel is like. So this is Mina's Matchbox. What is it about? I think it's a coming of age story. I think it's set around World War II era, but that's not what the focus is. I'm just excited to dive in and be surprised. That's how I approached the first novel that I read by her. I'm surprising myself today because this is the third book in this pile that I have read. Wow, look at me reading the books that I buy. So this is Pink Slime by Fernanda Trias. So this is a translated book, translated by Heather Cleary. The author is from Uruguay, and this is a literary fiction novel set in our world in an ecologically ravaged future. And that's all I'll say because I did finish it this month, so I will be talking about it during my August wrap-up. Where Peace is Lost by Valerie Valdez. This is an adult science fiction novel by a Latinx author, and that's why I picked it up. It says that it's a cozy space fantasy novel. Okay, well, it's listed as fantasy. I thought it was sci-fi. From master world builder Valerie Valdez. Again, I've been trying to read more sci-fi this year and trying to figure out what subgenre I really enjoy. I thought this was sci-fi. Apparently it's fantasy. That's okay. I still really want to read it and figure out if cozy's for me because I don't always vibe with cozy. Cozy's not a word that I think of or a buzzword for me. I usually run the other way when I hear that a book is cozy, but you know, maybe I just need to find the right type of cozy for me, so we'll see. Oh, number 4. This is the 4th book on this pile that I've read. This is The Lies of the Ajungo by Moses Osemi Utomi. I really enjoyed this novella. It's quite short. Like, it's really short, but the author manages to capture such a vivid world in such a short amount of space. It's amazing. So this is the first book to a series of novellas. The second novella is out. I haven't read it. I need to pick it up. But yeah, I just really enjoyed this book so much that I wanted to have a copy of it, and I saw it on sale, so I'm like, yep, I'm gonna have it. I realized that there are books that I enjoy so much but then never buy a copy, and I want to change that. I want to actually purchase books that I really enjoy rather than just building a collection and not knowing if I like books on my shelves, if that makes sense. Another book that I ended up purchasing earlier this year, maybe like back in February or whenever this book came out, is Through the Night Like a Snake. This is Latin American horror story, so it is an anthology. I've specifically waited until October, maybe September, to pick this one up just because I feel like the vibes are going to be right during that time. But yeah, I'm just hoping to discover new Latin American authors that I really enjoy and then continue to read their translated fiction, because I do like to read translated fiction, so I'm hoping to discover more authors that I love through this. Here I am, look at me. Okay, I'm so proud of myself. Okay, this is the 5th book that I've read in this pile. So this is Moon of Turning Leaves by Waubgeshig. This is a dystopian novel by an indigenous author. This is the author of Moon of the Crusted Snow. This actually takes place 10 years after Moon of the Crusted Snow. I enjoyed it as much, if not more, than Moon of the Crusted Snow. I don't know, there was just something about not knowing if you're alone in the world anymore and venturing out and potentially meeting new humans, or maybe not. Just the idea of exploring the world 10 years after there was a weird collapse and you don't know what the fuck happened. I really enjoyed this. And again, I'm trying to have more books in my collection by authors that I love, that are tried and true, and books that I've read that I've really enjoyed. So I have this one. I don't have Moon of the Crusted Snow, but whenever I see it, I will go ahead and purchase it, so I have the two together. Another book that I got is Bad Cree by Jessica Johns. This was a more recent purchase. I ended up getting it during the book outlet sale that happened a couple of weeks ago. This is another indigenous author, and this is a horror novel. I saw crows on the cover and I was sold. Indigenous author, horror book, and crows. I say less. So I think this is about a woman who has really vivid dreams. That's all that I want to know. I really don't want to know anything before diving in. And this is one that I've been saving for, again, the spooky time. So it is one that I'm hoping to read before the end of the year. Fingers crossed. The next one is White Horse by Erika T. Wurth. Book I actually ended up getting at a thrift store, and it was $1. So I had to add it to my collection, and I can't wait to read it. This next book was a pre-order that came in, and this is I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. I can't wait to dive into this one. I was supposed to pick it up this month. I fell behind on my NetGalley arc, so unfortunately I don't think I'll be able to get to it. I'm really hoping to be able to get to it in October, fingers crossed. I haven't actually read a full-blown novel by Stephen Graham Jones. I've only read his novellas, and they really work for me. So we'll see once I dive into his full-fledged novels. I actually do also have a small and growing collection by this author. Yeah, I own My Heart is a Chainsaw, Don't Fear the Reaper, this one, and Mapping the Interior. So I'm slowly growing it. So this next one is Hula by Jasmin, Iolani, Hakes. This is a Pacific Islander author. I noticed earlier this year that even though I do try to read diversely and read from different perspectives, that I was missing the lens and books by Pacific Islander authors. So I am slowly trying to change that by supporting more Pacific Islander authors and also reading their stories. So yeah, I can't wait to dive into this one and read it and let you know what I think. This next one, it's a book that I've been flirting with on and off. Once it came out, I knew that I had to read it. Just the premise of it sounded really good. And that is Severance by Ling Ma. The reason that I say that I've been flirting with is because I place it on hold at my library, then I get it during the most awful time. I either don't have time, or I'm in the middle of like 10 other books, or I'm not in the mood to read it. So I finally purchased it because I saw it on sale, and you know, I will get to it eventually. I don't know if I'll get to it this year, maybe in November. I will try, maybe not. I'm not sure. We'll see. We have another book by an Indigenous author that I forgot. So this is Venco by Cherie Dimaline. I admittedly do not know anything about this book. I saw the cover and I heard it was by an Indigenous author, and that's all I needed to know. It was also on sale, so that helped. And again, I'm trying to build my collection, so I don't know when I'll get to this one. It's not a priority at the time. We'll see. And the last and final book that I ended up purchasing this year is Delicious Monsters by Liselle Sambury. I just like the cover. I was at Barnes & Noble and they were having the like buy one get one free, and I just ended up purchasing it. I think this is a young adult horror novel. It says Daisy Sees Dead People. That's all I needed to know, along with this beautiful cover. Yeah, again, I've been trying to read more young adult books, both in horror and fantasy, and I hope that I really like it because it's a beautiful cover. Alright, so those were all of the books that I ended up reading. So those are all of the books that I purchased this year or acquired sometime this year. And here are the books that I committed to reading this year. Apparently, we'll see if that happens. I will come back to this video and see if that actually happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think that's doable, right? Yeah, I think we can do this. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.